27th of November, and it's vlog 118. Talking about the blood, and I just want to bring your attention to David. David was anointed by Samuel, and then he went off and fought Goliath and killed Goliath. And we all know the story, we've heard it preached about probably many times. But it wasn't because he was anointed by Samuel that gave him the ability to kill Goliath. Because before he was anointed by Samuel, just as a young lad, a young shepherd boy out there with the sheep, he made this testimony to Saul, King Saul, that he had killed lions and bears. Now this is very difficult to grasp in our Western civilized, sanitized society, but David, as a young lad, maybe he's 12, 13, 14, he says, you took hold of the lion by the beard, which means the mane, and struck it and killed it. If you go onto the internet and check out lions fighting, you will see how phenomenal this statement is, because lions are savage killers. Extremely powerful. One blow of their paw with their claws out could kill a man. And they are a killing machine. A lion is a living killing machine. And David, as a young 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old, got a hold of it while its claws out, it's roaring, it's doing its stuff, and struck it and killed it. One blow. He did the same with the bear or bears. Now what gave him that ability? He was in a blood covenant. He was circumcised. He was in the same blood covenant that God made with Abraham, which was, Genesis 15, do not be afraid, Abraham. I am your shield and your exceedingly great reward. So when David went to the armies of Israel and heard Goliath shouting and bawling and cursing, he asked a question. And in 1 Samuel chapter 17, he says this in verse 26. Then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? And then he says this, for who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Who is this guy here who hasn't got a covenant with God? He's in no relationship with God. There's no promises of God in his life. Who is this bloke shouting and cursing the nation of Israel? Who is this uncircumcised guy that he should defy the armies of the living God? Every one of those soldiers in the army of Israel was circumcised. Saul was circumcised. He may have made a lot of mistakes. The anointing may have left him, but he was still circumcised. Any one of those Israeli soldiers could have gone down into that valley and taken Goliath out because they were circumcised, just exactly the same as David was. They were all in the same covenant that God made with Abraham. God said, Abraham, I am your shield. He could have said, David, I am your shield. Saul, I am your shield. Armies of Israel, I am your shield. Why? Because they were super special people? No, because they were in a blood covenant. We are in a greater blood covenant than that one. We are in a new blood covenant with Jesus as our guarantee. Guarantee of what? Guarantee of failure? Guarantee of poverty? Guarantee of sickness? No, guarantee of victory and dominion in every area. David understood the blood covenant he was in. Even as a young lad, he understood it. And because he understood it, and he put his faith in it, when the enemy came, i.e. the lions or the bears, what did the lion come to do? The bear come to do? Come to steal the sheep, kill the sheep, destroy the sheep. That's the nature of Satan. Satan sends beasts into people's lives to kill, steal and destroy. Paul says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. So he sends beasts into our lives to intimidate us, to steal. But David understood the covenant and he killed them as a young lad. As a young boy out there in the fields, he killed them. He did exactly the same to Goliath. Because Goliath was not circumcised. He didn't have a covenant. We are in a blood covenant, so remember, Jesus is Lord, and he is our shield and exceedingly great reward.